England versus India. The Cricket Badger Test Match Daily Podcast. Can Joe Root's England dominate on home soil? 5 mouth-watering test matches. Can Virat Kohli's India conquer the final frontier? Loving to talk test cricket every day.
Hello, cricket badgers everywhere. How are you? It's been a while. It's been a while since that second test match, but we're looking ahead now to the third test match at Headingley, which starts tomorrow, Wednesday, as England take on India. India having that 1-0 lead in the 5 test match series. And I'm joined by my fan badgers today. We've got Neil Varani, Naman Shah and Mark Hilton with us. Got 2 Indian fans and an Englishman down there, bottom right of my screen anyway. And good to have you with us, fellas. And Mark, it's felt like a while since that second test match. It will have done for the players, I'm sure, to get away from the game for a little bit, the English players, to regroup a tad. Probably a good time, isn't it, to have a little bit of a break between the test matches rather than have a back-to-back where England can't really kind of get their head straight.
Yeah, and I think that's particularly important after what happened on the last day at Lord's. Obviously, it went, from England thinking they could win that test match on the last day, completely pear-shaped. And obviously, the ball went completely wrong with the ball in the morning session, particularly for that hour when they lost their heads and then getting bowled out in 53 overs. So I think Joe Root said it himself, he's had a few days away and it's helped refresh him and just put a bit of perspective on things. And hopefully, I do hope that they're ready to go tomorrow because, we say a lot, test matches are important, but this one is the big one. If England chokes on this test match, we could be looking at 4-0 if the weather holds.
You're a ray of sunshine in my life. Yeah, you always are.
They need to step up to the plate in this test match at Headingley. They really do.
Well, I mean, if they go 2-0 down, only 2 matches to play, isn't there? So it's even from that perspective, even if you don't expect a 4-0, you can't win the series from there. So England need to come away with at least a draw.
They need to get the momentum going. It's we talked on this podcast before about how I think this India side as an all-round package is their best side in history, in my belief.
Well, we're going to ask that actually because I've put that on the title of this podcast. Is this India's best ever Test team? Neil Varani, is this India's best ever Test team?
If that's the title of the pod, it's going to be quite short because yes, it is by a long, long way.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
We haven't had an all conditions bowling attack before. That's the main thing. We've had stronger batting lineups in the 2000s with the famous 5. Then that was a stronger batting lineup. But then we had Zaheer Khan holding together a seam bowling lineup, which was pop guns compared to what we're facing from South Africa and Australia and England.
I've been on a number of Indian podcasts over the last week, actually. We've talked about things like this. And I can remember going back to the kind of early 80s, late 70s, when India came across to these shores. And it used to be a couple of medium pacers and maybe 3 spinners or 4 spinners. You kind of a couple of medium pacers bowled 2 or 3 overs each at the start with a new ball. And then it was a spin for the rest of the day, even when the conditions aren't conducive. It's a totally different India now, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, well, I suppose at that time you could do that a little bit because uncovered pitches, they started wearing a lot quicker and the spinners actually got a lot more out of the pitch than you do these days. But what we've got at the moment, it's not just 1 or 2 class seamers, which we have had sporadically, the likes of Zaheer and Srinath and Kapil Dev himself.
But you can almost count them on the fingers of one hand, though, can't you? The ones from the bygone days, the Kapil Devs of this world.
Yeah, now we have choices. We can actually argue about which seamer should be in the team and which shouldn't. And then there are going to be 2, 3, 4 guys who are going to feel hard done by fairly. And we've never had that. We've actually got the potential to look at a pitch in a more micro detail and say, all right, we need someone with bounce, Ishant's in, or we need a bit, it's going to swing a bit, so we want Siraj in there more than someone else. We can make those different differentiations, the type that the likes of England have to when they go to Australia, or other teams have to when they come to England, and have that variety in a pace attack that we've never had before. And
Neil,
at the same time,
you should get that water bottle branded so you can get some sponsorship for it. You could basically stick Pepsi or Coke on it. You get loads of money for that. No, man. You look at the IPL and the impact the IPL has had on Indian cricket, and probably the biggest impact for me isn't in the batting, because India have always had decent batsmen. It's in the bowlers. You know, the likes of Nataraj and Siraj coming through. Have benefited hugely, haven't they? I mean, obviously good cricketers anyway. We're playing cricket anyway. Would have probably played cricket regardless. But I think it's honed their skills. It's honed their awareness. It's honed their big match temperament. The fact they've played in the IPL and had that exposure.
A lot, and it is helping a lot of youngsters. And as Neil correctly mentioned, that we have so many players to choose from, and like likes of Avesh Khan and all getting to bowl along with Rabada, Siraj getting to bowl along with Dale Steyn. So this is a dream moment for the youngsters coming up, and similarly for the batsmen as well. So yes, IPL has helped a lot, and also India A team, the domestic teams have been rightly being mentored by Rahul Dravid. I feel he is the correct man over there, planted over there.
You can't ever do a podcast about the state of Indian cricket without Naman bigging up Rahul Dravid.
Yes, to be honest, as a man, he wouldn't be taking any credit for this also, because I've heard a lot of podcast from him, and he doesn't like to be praised a lot. But he is a silent guy over there who's doing a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what, Naman, he's not going to like you then, because you praise him every day.
He deserves everything what India is achieving right now. So he has mentored a lot, and also these youngsters likes of Shubman Gill and all coming from his backyard. And yes, like Neil correctly mentioned, the bottom line is we have so many players to choose from is a huge advantage.
Mark, if we look at Indian teams of old and we compare them to this current side, I mean, you started this discussion off by saying this is the best Indian side that you can think of in Test cricket. What players of yesteryear would you see coming? I mean, that kind of age-old adage of comparing England to India, which players will get in each team. If you compare India of past to India of present, what players would be knocking on the door to get in this current 11?
Well, the Indian 11. Well, I mean, we've got Srinath, who was obviously an excellent swing bowler. Kapil Dev, another excellent swing bowler. Obviously, a variety of spinners they've had over the years could probably challenge the spinners. But we're talking odds and sods. I mean, if Neil said it's about a collective bowling attack, and when someone like Kapil Dev was opening the bowl, and he was shouldering it on his own arms, and so was Javagel Srinath when he was opening the bowl, in fine bowler though he was. And they've always had that odd seam bowler, but never a collection of them. Obviously, India have had spin bowlers over the years, and some very fine spin bowlers going back to the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But even so, I mean, you'd look at Ashwin and you'd say, well, he's comparable to any of them.
Yeah.
In terms of his ability in all conditions. I mean, in all conditions, Ashwin is an outstanding bowler, which makes it even more of a, when you look at it, so they're winning this series without possibly their best bowler in all conditions. So yeah, obviously there's some of the stars in the past of India would challenge, but these fast bowlers they've got now would hold their own with any of them.
If you think about the way bowling attacks work, Mark, I mean it's kudos, isn't it, to the likes of Kapil Dev and the one kind of spearheads of yesteryear, that they actually came out with such great stats, because we often see bowlers hunting in packs these days. If one has a bad day, the other one picks up 5, but they help each other out because one holds at one end, and then somebody benefits the other end from their bowling, in tandem. And they were kind of ploughing a lone furrow at times, weren't they, in the pace attack for India? So that their stats almost mean more, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, Capel Dev at times was used as a strike bowler and a stop bowler. I mean, he started off as a fast bowler, and then he was, so he's about a bit like Muralithrin with Sri Lanka, isn't he? If you make that comparison, he was basically bowling all the overs a lot of the time, and he was moving from strike to stop bowler. I mean, Capel Dev, obviously a fine bowler who, if with this attack, you'd look at him. You look at him getting a lot more than the 400 odd wickets he got in his career. But I mean, those bowlers didn't have the luxury of those other bowlers around them to rest, to actually have a defined role in the side. They were the bowler. They did all the jobs. So yeah, it did. Those bowlers in the past had a lot of work. They couldn't work as a pack. And it's similar to, as I say, someone like Sri Lanka with Muralithrin and how he kind of carried them for a long time, although he had some fine bowlers with him like Jaminda Bass and various other people over the years. But yeah, kudos to people like Kapil, to Srinath, those types of bowlers, fine bowlers. You can only compare eras with eras, but I think those bowlers would be great bowlers in any era.
Neil, who would you take in from past Indian sides? I mean, we haven't mentioned the likes of Tendulkar, Dravid, who obviously no one's mentioning in his coaching capacity, would have been knocking on the door, I guess. There's a number of batsmen there, as Mark mentioned, the bowlers of yesteryear, the spin bowlers of yesteryear. There's some tremendous spinners that India have had, but who would be shoo-ins for you? I mean, Tendulkar, I guess, would walk in, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think you'd replace the whole top four and drop Kohli down to 5. And you'd have Tendulkar and Dravid at 3 and 4. You'd have Sehwag, who for me is an all-time great opener, and the other all-time great opener in Gavaskar as well. Although I think, let's see what he can do over the next 3-4 years, especially if Rohit is starting to perform away from India, where he's got an average of 80 or something ridiculous there. But he's finally starting to look like he might fulfill his potential away from home now that he's opening in those away series instead of batting at 6.
There's not many current sides though, Neil, who you could only really imagine taking maybe 4 or 5 players from yesteryear and creating the greatest side. I mean, if you took the England team at the moment, there's probably Joe Root, Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad might be in the conversation, but you've got 50 or 60 other people to compete with them. That isn't the case with India, is it? This side is very good indeed.
Oh, this side could potentially. I don't think they're quite there with 2000s Australia or 1980s West Indies, but they are currently the tier below.
What would they need? What would they need to do to go up onto that level? Is it just longevity of performance?
Longevity of performance and series victories in England, in South Africa. I'd like one in New Zealand, but apparently as part of the big 3, part of the contract is just to ignore those sides and only play amongst ourselves. So I'm sure we're due to tour them in about 10 years when half the side's retired. But South Africa and England are 2 places where we haven't had success. We've conquered Australia without Smith and Warner, and then deciding to flip the asterisk without all our star players as well, which was a bit of a cunning feat. But England this time round, and this winter in South Africa, we probably caught the 2 teams while they still have a couple of world-class players, but it's probably the best time to ever play these 2 teams. England are perpetually in transition from ever since 2013. I'm not sure if you can still be in transition after 8 years.
When does transition become the norm?
Yeah, and South Africa certainly for the last couple of years, and we definitely want to get them before they sort out their own governance, and two, start to build up their domestic playing stock from the Kolpak ruling no
you're
longer
painting
counting.
India to be like the vultures, just going around and preying on these half-dead sides and seeing what they can pick off the carcass. Naman, in terms of that discussion about the kind of the players of yesteryear, I mean, we've reeled off a load of names there. There aren't many, are there, that would be really knocking on the door of getting into this current side? It's a pretty impressive, not just 11, but squad that India are building up in the Test arena.
Yes, and who would have thought Sky would be sitting over there in the test squad? No one would have imagined 2 years back from here, and he's sitting in the test squad, that too in England. So also Prithvi Shaw, Mayank Agrawal. To be honest, KL Rahul was the fourth choice. So right now he's the premier opener for India. So as discussed earlier, there's a lot to choose for, but more than the batting, yes, India have produced great batsmen first also. But if you have noticed, Shastri has always mentioned whenever we have won the series, it's all about taking those 20 wickets. So it's more of the mindset of the team and Virat Kohli's, and it's all because at home, yes, the batsmen are going to score, but more wins matter when you are away from home. So it's more of taking those 20 wickets when you are playing against England, in England, against Australia, against Africa. So that is why you are seeing the bowlers right now, the bunch we have got, and also in the dugout as well. So it's more of the mindset and team building, and not just for this year. It's about building a team for looking at next 5 years. So even if Bumrah, likes of Shami, gets injured or maybe retire in next 5 to 6 years, because they have touched 30 Shamis also. So we have bowlers to back. That is why I also fear, like, if Anderson right now announces something after Ashes, so what do England have on the plate? So this is where the transition phase needs to start as early as possible.
I used to be quite good at medium pace. They could call me in. I'm going to go around you very quickly. Of that greatest 11 that we've kind of built in our head, we've kind of got the current team plus some of those great names of yesteryear. Who would captain it, Mark? Would it be Virat or would it be somebody else?
Ooh, would it be somebody else? No, I think Virat Kohli is an excellent captain. You could see that in the last Test match. I think the players follow him. I think he's got passion. I love his passion on the field. You know, he radiates that through the side. So for me, it's not just about what Kohli does with the bat. It's how he leads, and for me, he's a real leader. You know, real leader. He shows real leadership on the field and off the field. You know, he's a great advocate for 5-day cricket. He's a great advocate for example, we talked about the Indian domestic structure. I think since Kohli's been around, he's advocated the development of that, and I think they've got a very good domestic structure now.
This was supposed to be a quick answer.
No, Virat Kohli would be my captain compared, and also he's, as we say, he's a very successful captain.
Neil, can you beat that speedy answer from Mark?
Kohli, but he's also, with the possible exception of Kumble, the only one who's actually a good captain. Sachin, Rahul, Gavaskar, they're all shambles as captains because they were batters first rather than leaders. It was only when you got through to sort of Dada, Kumble, Dhoni that you actually had leaders and men. And I think Kohli's built this team in his own image. And that huddle before the fourth innings, Lords, was a microcosm of how great he is leading that team.
Naman, Virat for you?
No, I'll go with MSD with Saurav Ganguly in his years.
We didn't mention MSD as the potential keeper. Pant's in though, isn't he? Rishabh Pant would be in ahead of MSD, surely.
Yes, he would be there, but my first choice will always be Dhoni. He's always, no matter which format, he should be there in that
So
11.
you're going to bring MSD in as a kind of like a Mike Brady captain, not quite good enough to be in the 11, but bringing him for his tactics and everything.
100%.
You take an average of 40, James, in this England team.
Oh, there's high standards in this Indian, in this greatest ever Indian side. There's a high standards. MSD's knocking on the door. I'm telling you, we've got a load of questions coming. Actually, let's look ahead to the Test match now, which obviously starts at Headingley tomorrow. I saw Naman. I think Virat Kohli's basically said, "Why do we need to change the team?" I think it looks like India are probably going to go with the same 11. Would you be in agreement with that? Or, I mean, the only obvious candidate for coming in might be Ashwin, isn't it?
Yes, it would be more of a tactical change and not a forced one, as all are fit. So if Ashwin comes in, so I just feel that Shardul would be coming in because we would be needing two batsmen in place of Jadeja. So maybe Ashwin and Shardul, the combination would work in place of batting. But because Malan would be in and Burns will surely be playing, so with three left-handers in top seven with Moeen Ali adding to them to the list, for sure Ashwin will be playing tomorrow. I feel in place of Jadeja because I had read somewhere that he would be playing in place of Jadeja. And yes, with keeping batting in mind because Jadeja brings a lot of those low order runs, and when he comes in, he hits a lot and he scores those 50-60 quick runs. So I feel Shardul would be in place of Ishan Mo for batting also.
Yeah, I mean, the tail, Neil, is quite long, isn't it? Even though they did wag in that second innings at Lords, they had no right to wag, really. It is an 8, 9, 10, 11, straight 14, 15, 16, 17 kind of tail, isn't it? I mean, is that the only place you try and strengthen, or would you just keep it the same 11?
I disagree with Naman a little bit in that I don't think Jadeja is ever going to be risked on the basis that our batting, with the exception of that one glorious hour, it does stop at 7 currently. So I think based on the bowling so far, I think Siraj and Bumrah are both definites. And then I think you're looking at 2 out of Ashwin, Shardul, Ishant, and Shami based purely on conditions and fitness, whether there are niggles, whether anyone needs a little bit of a rest. But as you say, we've got to that stage where we can actually afford to make conditions-based choices in our lineup and know that people will turn up whoever we pick. So I'd say Jadeja, Bumrah, Siraj locked in, and then 2 out of the other 4 based on what it's like. Virat did say, why change a winning team? But he also said that he reckons the ground's going to be quite spicy. He thought that they'd already taken off more grass than he expected a couple of days out. So get there tomorrow morning, see what's what, see how the drainage is around that new stand and how dry that's going to make things, and pick based on that. And I think actually now the team, all the players are buying into that team ethic. So there aren't going to be the people who in the 2000s who'd have that hissy fit at being dropped because they're acting in a collective.
Yeah. Shaj Manju's been on with his message. He says, Mark, England should bring in Mahmood and Overton for Curran and Wood. I mean, Wood's injured. I mean, I know you're a big fan of Saqib Mahmood. Would you bring Overton in as well? Would those be the 2 additions to England's bowling attack?
Yes, I would. I would take Sam Curran out the side because I think the pitch at Headingley will be quite slow, similar to Lords. I don't think Sam Curran will get anything out of that pitch. I think Sam Curran's record in test matches over the last 10, 12 test matches he's played has been quite poor with the ball. I would bring Overton in for Curran. I would bring Mahmood in for Wood. I hope they do that. My suspicion is that they're so nervous about the batting, we will have Overton 9 and Robinson 10. And I think that would be a really poor decision from England because there'd be no point of difference in their attack. And I think Sam Curran, as a bowler at the moment, is a passenger in that side. He's a best bowler.
And Zach Crawley recalled to bat at number 11. Shaj Manju, he says he feels after the 2015 World Cup, England have prioritised white ball cricket. Absolutely, Shaj, absolutely. And he's also saying Chris Wokes has started playing county cricket. Hope he's fit for the 4th Test match. I think he played a second team game, Sharj, and I think he took, was it 3 wickets or something? Looked quite good. So hopefully Chris Wokes is on the way back. Naman, he also says Siraj is the game changer in India's bowling. He made the difference in the last Test match. Would you agree with that? He's the kind of like X factor that can make a difference and change things in the space of sort of 20 minutes. Bring him on and say, "Go on, Mohammad Siraj, tear him apart."
Not exactly, but yes, he is a game changer, but not tear apart. And I feel it's still new to this arena, and India doesn't need to overburden him with too much of responsibility. He's surrounded by fantastic Indian bowlers right now. So overall, I feel Kohli has given him that responsibility to be on his own and bowl what he does best. He is brilliant with his line and lengths. So he is on his own right now, and he's being perfect for India. So I don't think so. He's being aggressive on the field and everything. That is young blood coming out of him. But overall, he just needs to be calm, and he's doing right now. He's at his best, so he just need to stay over there.
Neil, Saj also says, after Kapil Dev, why have India not produced any great all-rounders?
Jadeja.
Ashwin.
I mean, I think
Ashwin to a certain extent, especially if we're playing West Indies, because I think he's got 4 centuries against them. But Jadeja is averaging 50 over the last 3 years. I think it's something like number 4 out of all international players in the last 3 years. Labuschagne is above him, and maybe a couple of others. And he's been number 1 Test bowler in the world. He's probably he'd get picked ahead of Ashwin in India just because he's metronomic, and also with the fines and points deductions coming in for slow over eights, it's always useful to have him.
He bowls them really quickly, doesn't he? He comes off about 2 or 3 paces. He charges back to his mark. It's really refreshing to see that. And
he it's because he doesn't have all the varieties. He's got one that turns, he's got one that's straight, and he'll generally hope for something out of the pitch just to mix them up a bit as well. So he's just hammering down on that spot, the same way that we talk about Jimmy just hitting, a 4th or 5th stump, just consistently and waiting for a batter to lose concentration and nick off. That's what Jadeja does. But also, I don't think anyone realizes how rare it is to have. We talk about all-rounders, but an actual true all-rounder is a very rare thing.
We were so blessed in the 80s with the likes of Hadley, Botham, Kapil Dev, Imran Khan, Clive Rice, South Africa. There were so many around the world that are just playing in the same era. It was just ridiculous. I don't think people actually realised at the time how lucky we were to have all of that. Sharj is basically saying England would love to have Peterson, Cook and Trott in the lineup. Totally. As India would love to have Sehwag, Tendulkar and Dravid in the lineup, I'm sure. Mani Vannan is saying no change to the Indian side. He thinks England side will take out Sam Curran, Sibley and Wood, and Overton, Milan and Mahmood coming in. So agreeing with Sharj's earlier point there. It also says, I like Virat as a cricketer, not as a personality. Always captain cool. Oh, Captain Cool. I would imagine you want the captain to be cool, because I don't think Virat could ever be described as cool. Claire, who is a regular on our IPL podcasts, I think she's going to the game tomorrow. So she says, look out for her in the crowd. She'll be waving to you all out there, badges, waving to you all. And she's basically underlining the credentials of the one and only MSD. Big fan of MSD is Claire. How do you see this? I know you're saying this might be a slow pitch. I know Neil's brought up the drainage. Was it Naman said that Virat think it might be spicy? Headingley is not often that much of a bowling paradise. And I'll tell you what, over the last sort of 10 years or something, losing the toss at Headingley is not a bad thing. Virat Kohli might be in his element with this one because he loses the toss all the time, doesn't he? But if you lose the toss and the winning captain looks at the pitch, they usually think decent batting track. Let's have first dibs on this. First day is when it gets a little bit of help and you can bowl the team out. Days 2, 3, and 4 is when you can make hay while the sun shines kind of thing. So be interesting to see how the caps, because it takes a brave man to win the toss at Headingley and bowl first. But it's often the best strategy with the to go first with the ball there. I've seen a lot of Test cricket at Headingley. Shaj is saying, God, I'll tell you what, Shaj, you've been prolific here. You've done more typing than I've been talking. Shaj says, Joe Root has an average less than 40 in Leeds. England are in trouble, he says. I tell you what, Shaj, I've seen a lot of Joe Root hundreds at Leeds. He likes batting there. But trouble is with Joe at the minute, Mark, and there isn't a trouble with Joe because Joe's doing rather well. But the problem might be he's human. Even Don Bradman got out cheaply sometimes.
Not at Headingley.
Headingley, Don Bradman was rather prolific, wasn't he? What do England do if Joe Root gets out for naught? Just basically go home?
Well, they pressed the panic alarm, but yeah, he got 33 in the second innings at Lords, and he's not going to get a century every time. Well, England have to. We've said it so many times. They have to step up to the plate. They brought Milan back. Milan is a good choice to come back. He's got experience. He's got big hundreds at Headingley recently. They've got him in at 3. They're going to have to hope that the middle order fires, apart from Bairstow getting a 50. These batsmen have got to step up to the plate. Because if they don't, we're going to get steamrolled again. It's as simple as that. I think the pitch at Headingley after day 1 will be a road.
Can I just come in on that? Because I know as England supporters, fans, viewers, whatever, we were disappointed after day 5 at Lords. But I thought the fallout from that, in terms of the negativity towards England, was over the top, really, because for probably 80% of that match, 85% of that match, they were either toe-to-toe or even noses ahead of India in that Test match. But they lost the crucial part of it.
Yeah, but you win the big moments. It's all right saying we batted okay in the first innings. You win the big moments, and that big moment to win that Test match is when they got pants out early. They got those couple of early breakthroughs, and they blew it.
But in terms of what I'm trying to get to, though, Mark, is that I don't think England are as good as India at the moment. But in terms of that performance, they level pegged through most of that Test match. So it's not all doom and gloom, is it?
Well, it's not all doom and gloom. By any stretch of the imagination, it's not all doom and gloom. But they lose the important moments. They got bowled out. We say India bowled brilliant when they did. They got bowled out in 53 overs. They couldn't bat out 60 overs. It's the same when England have played good sides in the past. When they played Australia, you could say, well, we competed for 3 days. Well, on the 4th day, you got steamrolled and lost the game. We can always, if you lose in Test matches, like 4-day cricket and county cricket, if you lose big sessions, you lose the match. You've got to step up in those moments. And England have failed in those major moments in too many games recently. And the batsmen, to bat 53 overs on that pitch at Lords in the second innings, I don't care how good the bowling was. It's criminal. And actually, it was 13 wickets that fell. India took 13 wickets because they dropped 3 catches. So they got them out in 53 overs, 13 wickets. They only had to bat 2 sessions. I would bat most county sides to bat 2 sessions in a game. But that shows how bereft of confidence they are.
Mark came on this before we press record. He says, "I've had a bad day at work. Let me grab a glass of wine." And he's off on one now, and he's off on one. I could just leave him there. He'd be talking in the bottom right hand side of the screen. Just carry on yamming away.
Step up to the plate. These batsmen have to step up to the plate. They're supposed to be Test match players. It's about time they delivered and stopped hiding behind excuses and techniques. They decide what techniques they want to use, whatever. Get out there and get the runs, or step away.
There you go, England. There you go. That has been your team talk. Now, man, Shaj comes back with Rishabh Pant and Virat Kohli start scoring runs in this series. Basically, his message is England are toast. They're gone. They can't compete. But the thing is, England haven't let them score runs yet, have they?
Yes, and it's not only England, also in Australia, Kohli has not been scoring since a while. Yes, they are out of runs, but rest of the players are digging in. They are taking the opportunities, and yes, there is going to be a day when these two gun players are going to bat for India. And I'm saying this since Australia tour. Still, we are yet to perform with our best batting. We have been winning these games only because of our bowlers, because the middle order, yes. The innings which Pujara and Rahane played would have given a lot of confidence to Kohli as well. I don't think so. There is any technical glitch over there, as Rahul Dravid, again I'll mention, has always uttered these words, look out where your off stump is. And Kohli had rectified back this in 2018 as well. So I feel he is too much pumped up right now. He wants to perform out there, and you can see with his bat going everywhere. He wants to score. So with the innings which Pujara and Rahane played, I feel like he is going to calm down his nerves. And yes, and also with Pant. Yes, he has scored 25s and 30s, but when he gets going, it's just entertainment everywhere and ball is flying. So I am not too concerned with the form these two players are going through right now. And I'm sure, being this batting paradise, India is playing in Headingley after 19 years. Last time when India had played, we had Rahul Dravid, Lakshman, and Sachin. All three of them had scored a ton. So, and we had won by an inning. So, I'm sure they are going to repeat this again. And Kohli should score his first after maybe 2 years and dedicate it to his daughter.
That's Naman Shah speaking there. It's Rahul Dravid's agent, I think, these days. Neil, Surya Kumar Yadav, he was mentioned earlier. One of my favourite players, Mumbai Indians, Sky, as they call him for MI. Any chance that we'll see him in this series? I think it's unlikely. He's there as a backup, isn't he?
Yeah, he's there as a backup, and I think the way that Pujara batted in that third innings was back to the Pujara of old, soaking up 200 balls. All of that glory on day 5, that doesn't happen if he gets out cheaply on day 4. Game's over same day. Soaked up a lot of balls there. He scored 45, 46, took a worldie with a absolute kicker of a bounce from Mark Wood to get him out. He looked like he'd set up camp there. And someone on another podcast made a very good point, which is Sky has become integral to the way that we're starting to play T20 cricket. Do you want to scramble his mind by getting...
That would be a very English way of treating him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to scramble his mind by him getting turned inside out by Jimmy, which Jimmy can do to anyone?
If he was English, Neil, if he was English, Neil, he'd be batting at number 3 in this series, wouldn't he?
It might be.
Quite possibly, yeah. He'd get a go before the end of the tour, like another 3 batters will as well if Milan can't make it stick straight away. It seems, a bit of a revolving door at the moment. I like having him there with the group, just to net with them. Get face those bowlers in the nets, see how he does, get a proper look at him. Apparently he hasn't played Ranji since early 2020, maybe. So get a proper look and see how he is. He's not one for the future. He's someone that is 30 odd. Will get, if he does play and does well, we'll get 3-4 years out of him. But I wouldn't throw him in and risk the T20 World Cup mindset that he'll have already, unless it was necessary, unless there's injury or serious loss of form.
I've got a real desire, Mark's head's just appearing just above the bottom of the screen there, to play a snooker shot and use him as the cue ball. Anyway, let's finish off with just a little bit of a chat about Jasprit Bumrah and Jimmy Anderson. There's been a lot said. Lip readers, interpreters have been going on about what they've been saying. Jimmy's been on his podcast on the BBC explaining it all. Will we see them kiss and make up, Neil, at Headingley? Will they be bosom buddies again?
Not a chance. Not a chance. And I think last time that we came over, someone asked Jadeja how things were with Jimmy, and he kind of batted it off because Jadeja is someone who he's a show no weakness kind of guy. But this team does not like Jimmy Anderson. The Jadeja incident, the complete gracelessness of the way that he was on camera when England toured India in 2015-16, when he was talking about Indian pitches masking Virat's technical deficiencies after he just scored a double hundred. He's a guy that I think opposition players find very hard to like because he's also very mouthy.
That's the key, Neil, because I think it is opposition players. His own teammates love him because they know he's going to take him loads of wickets. He's good in the dressing room. He encourages the younger bowlers, etc. But opposition players can't stick him. I know the Yorkshire players, when on a couple of occasions when Yorkshire played Lancashire, been a little bit of aggro in those games because he likes a little bit of a chirp at the crease, does Jimmy Mark, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I mean, I was at one of those Yorkshire games in 2011 where he was jumping up and down in front of a couple of batsmen when he was feeling it slip and what have you. But I think he does it because it's...
Was that at Egbert?
Yeah, it was Egbert,
Yeah, I was there, yeah.
Yeah, he does it because it motivates him. It gets him fired up. It gets him motivated. It's a form of self-motivation in terms of the opposition. So he likes to have a chirp. He likes to feel on edge when he's on the pitch. I mean, he said that himself, and that, he comes across as Mr. Grumpy. He likes to play up to that externally on his podcasts and what have you. But on the pitch, he likes that edge, and it gives him a bit of a fire. And I think that's why he does it. Intrinsically, he's by all accounts a very nice man. But I think when he steps over the line, that's just the way he is. So I wouldn't want him to start kissing and makeup and hugs when they're going off the field and all the rest of it. I'm quite happy for a bit of needle in the game. It's nothing, as long as it doesn't get too far. That's why I wasn't too concerned with Siraj. It's nice to see a young man come on and give it all this and send a few batsmen off. It's it's a bit of fun. It's a game. Let's not take it too seriously. Think, they shouldn't be doing that. They're on a cricket pitch. Give over. Let them get on with it. They're grown men.
You could say he's had a bad day at work now, man. He's getting in the face of
Jimmy Anderson, Bumrah. I think Jimmy himself. He needs to take a serious look at himself as well. If he's complaining about being bounced, I mean, for God's sake, he's batted number 11 for a long time, but he's actually batted a long time in a lot of games. He's going to get bounced. He's going to get it round his throat, like most number 11s are. They can all load a bat.
He was complaining that Bumrah wasn't trying to get him out, was just basically trying to inflict pain on him or extend the over. And he'd been bowling slower at the other players and he was bowling faster.
If Jimmy wants to move to leg and get bowled, that's fine. If he wants to get into line, he might have to suck up a bit of pain.
Are you enjoying the sideshow now, man? Do you like this needle that Mark's trying to get inside this series?
I don't think so. They are treating him like this because he's Jimmy Anderson. I feel that they are treating this England team as a whole and not because he's Anderson or Root. You saw Kohli pumping out Robinson as well. So they are all heated up. This is only going to increase every match and they are going to pounce on each and every player. So I don't think so. This is being taken out of proportion a bit. So this is a part and parcel. So I'm not at all surprised. And this is I won't be surprised if it is heated up more from from tomorrow. So it's okay.
Final point, Neil. Last question. I don't think Joe Root's a smiley fella. He loves his cricket, but I don't think I've ever seen him smile so much in a series. Do you reckon that's his defensive mechanism? Do you reckon he's getting a little bit of needle out there and he's kind of like making sure he's smiling? Because there's nothing worse if you're driving in the car and you kind of get a bit of road rage and you're thinking, and the other bloke just kind of looks at you and goes, oh yeah, and it kind of really winds me up. That does. Do you reckon that's what Joe Root's trying to do?
I actually thought it was the other way. I looked at him when he was doing the interviews after Lord's and even during that game, and he looked tired. He looked like he was almost 25 years old instead of 12 like he normally does. I'm wondering whether
He's cracking past 30. So yeah,
The pressure of being captain. He's been doing it 5 years now, I think. Um, that that's longer than most people last in the job, because apart from the responsibility of playing in the team, there's so much other stuff outside, especially England, who play more Test cricket than anyone.
He's carrying the weight of that side, the hopes of the nation, etc., etc., etc. It's a tough old job, isn't it? It's a tough old job being England captain. He was he always third behind being prime minister. Then he was the England football manager. Then the England cricket captain was seen as the third most stressful job in England. I'm sure there's others. Mark's job. Look at how stressed he is after his day at work today. But we will we'll see Mark shortly. We'll see Neil and Naman again. Thanks, chaps, for joining us today on the Cricket Badger podcast. It's not going to be quite daily as we go through this test match. I have got a lot of work on this week. We're going to be missing Wednesday and Thursday. So day 1 and day 2 of the test match. We will not have a test match daily, but we'll be back Friday through the weekend to talk about, hopefully it goes to 5 days, and we can talk about the business end of the match with you then. But we'll see you very, very soon on the Cricket Badger podcast at cricket_badger on the Twitter feed, and enjoy the first 2 days of this test match. It's an important one.